Yeah. So, hello and welcome to Military Mantra. In this interview, we have today Colonel Gaurav, who have served the Indian Army for close to 25 years. And in this interview, we'll try to understand his journey of joining Indian Army, live with the Indian Army in the Parachute Regiment, and various life lessons that he has learned over his service. So, welcome, sir, and thank you for coming on this interview today.
Thank you. Thank you, Akash. It's a pleasure interacting with you, and I'm grateful to you that you gave me this awesome proposal and opportunity. And I look forward to a very, very interactive and a nice session for all the viewers. Thank you.
Sir, if you could, start telling us, how did you decide to join the Indian Army, and what motivated you back then to join the armed forces?
Yeah, I'm actually a second generation Army officer, and frankly, all my uncles. My father is from the Parachute Regiment. My uncle is from one of them is from the Parachute Regiment. The other one is from the infantry. The other one was in the Air Force. So I'm basically from an armed forces family. And for me, it was a foregone conclusion that I will definitely join the army and the parachute regiment, because perhaps kids grow up these days. Kids grow up, seeing their mobiles and whatnot and going to Goa. I perhaps grew up watching my father jump out of an aircraft at 4 years of age, and for me that was the greatest thing which I had ever done or seen in my life. And what would a young kid, a young boy, seeing his dad jump out and then walking with that Schweizer in his maroon beret and just giving him a smile and tapping on his cheek. I mean, it was like, oh, boss, this is the only thing I want to do. So here I was, joined the army. My basic motivation was that.
Yeah. So now that explains why you would have opted for Parachute Regiment. Sir, if you can also talk about, your life in academy, you would have also gone to Officer Training Academy. How was life back then there? Any memorable incidents that you have from your academy life, which you would like to share?
Yeah. All the time. So what happens is that the day you get your collar from the UPSC, if I may say, you feel as a boss. Abhi to I have become an officer. I'm Lieutenant, Second Lieutenant Gaurav Chatterjee. That's what I felt. But I forgot in the excitement of succeeding that there is a long training. Delhi is far off. Delhi to bahut dur hai. Abhi training mein bhi jana. And in my times we had to travel by train. So my father and mother they gave me a new box. My father was of course an army. He gave me a new hold all and a new suitcase, and everything was new, kurta pajamas and shorts, and everything was brand new. And I even took a haircut, before I went, not a military haircut, but I even took a haircut, a very officer-like haircut. मैंने कहा अभी तो officer बनना है तो उधर जाना है. So I landed up on Chennai railway station. It was called Madras in those times. And the first thing on getting out of the train, of the AC compartment, my father gave me an AC2 ticket actually. He knew that abhi beta dimag sort out hone wala hai training mein, so let him, he pampered me. Okay. So I got out of this and I immediately got out, and I got two coolies to carry my box, and I found a drill instructor roaming around, and drill ustads are like very stern and very disciplined people, they don't even smile. So he told me, tum come here, तो मोटी है, तुम ज्वाइन करने आए कोर्स में आए 52 कोर्स में. मैंने कहा हाँ मैं 52 कोर्स में आया. क्या ठीक है उधर रिपोर्ट करो. And he saw those two coolies and he gave me a very, very amused smile. He was going to hit me. And then I got into the bus after reporting, of course, and we reached the gate of OTA. So all the way, when we were in the bus, those drill sahabs were instructing us कि तुम ये करेगा, तुम ऐसा करेगा और तुम ऐसा करेगा. And then I was Chennai is like hot, and I was sweating, and I was very happy, and everybody was very happy, and everybody was shaking hands. So we reached the gate and we found 4 of our seniors. So I looked at them and I said, chalo, ye log welcome party mein honge. And I thought कि जैसे in the army you are given a cup of tea and water and all when you reach. So I looked at them and all of them were shouting. I don't know, the moment they saw us, they started shouting loudly, you so and so and all. And all of us thought कि मतलब why are they shouting, यार, what's wrong? And we looked at कि किसके ऊपर चिल्ला रहे हैं, ठीक है? So we entered and we realized कि तो हमारे ऊपर ही चिल्ला रहे हैं. So I had the audacity to ask one of them, yeah, what's wrong here? I hope all is okay. कहते yeah, all is okay. Come here. What's your name? So I told him my name. He says, pick up your box and go to start running this side. Okay. So I said, which side? He said, you bloody so and so, you start running on that road. Okay. So that was the funniest part. And there my second lieutenant dreams shattered, and I became gentleman cadet Gaurav Chatterjee. I became GCGC. And then of course, in the academy, everything is so rosy and good that on the first day you're assured with everything, and your company commander comes and talks to you. Your captain, your platoon commander comes and talks to you. Your junior platoon under officer comes and talks to you, and you're treated really well. You're given a cup of tea and snacks, and then you perhaps are rolling to have your dinner, because by dinner time the honeymoon is over, and then you are so it's not bullying, or it's not it's nobody's troubling you. from day one, you are being psychologically and physically steeled. You are being made into that steel. You're being turned into that sword, which will win victories for the nation. And by the time the training finishes, you are a different man. From a boy, you become a man. And and one day, one more incident, that we were having this drill square ragda fallen, and we were rolling on the drill square for a lot many hours, and something went inside my head. I lost hair, maybe. I had beautiful hair, but at that time also the hair was like this only, because it was all almost shaved off. So I put my hand onto my head and I found a nail, hobnail of a boot stuck in my head. And then I was so afraid to take it out also. I thought, yeah, what it say, nothing happened. There was some blood which came out and it all got okay by money. So, these are the incidents which happen. And of course, the bonding which you develop, Postmates mean a lot, in life. They're like your lifeline all your life. It's like you might not talk to your Postmates for years, and the day you meet, you just pick up from where you left. In fact, let me show this to you. This is my course plaque, and I keep it right next to me. And these are the martyrs of my course who gave their life for the nation. And I keep it right next to me all the time. This is the first thing I see when I come to office. This plaque keeps me sane. It keeps me motivated. It keeps my integrity intact. It keeps my mind in the right place and the heart in the right place.
That's nice.
That's how it is. Yeah.
So if you can, also tell us, after the academy, did you just opt for 7 para? Is that what happened, or you went to some other regiment and then opted for it? And if that was the case, how was your experience in the probation in itself? Because everybody, now wants, after Uri movie and everything, people wants to join the parachute regiment, the para itself. So everybody talks about the probation. So how was your experience of probation and what happens?
Yeah. Okay. Coming on to probation. So, you must know that I actually, I took a parental claim to join 7 para because my father was decorated and he was a 71 war casualty. So I claimed a parental claim, and I was lucky enough to. Not everybody gets a parental claim also all the time. So just like anything else, joining the army. So there is a very famous speaker from the British Special Air Services, Captain Simon Mann. I would like to quote from his interview that there is no magic mantra to join the paras. If you want to join it hard enough, you somehow will. Okay. Now, starting from here, what happens is that a probation is also very, very scientifically designed to check all the qualities which you have been tested earlier. Okay. And a few qualities like your fitting into the team, your cooperation, your collaboration, your liveliness, your wit under extremely, extremely physically duressing circumstances is all the time checked. And let me assure you that a probation is not so romantic as it seems to be in Uri movie. There is no romance and there is no glamour in it. It is just made to test you and to turn you into a blade, which will cut the enemies of the nation in two. And so you have various facets of a probation. You have a physical fitness phase, you have a testing phase, you have a OJT phase, and in all the phases, let me promise you that the paras are not looking for human Rambos or Olympic athletes. Okay, it's mind over matter. It's mind over your body. Whatever your mind decides to do, you will do. So my advice to anyone who wants to go for probation is that don't pretend to be a psycho. We are looking for very, very balanced human beings. We are looking for very, very good human beings. And don't get too impressed by what you see in movies. After all, movies are dream merchants. No? I stay in Mumbai. It's also called the city of dreams. So their job is to sell those dreams to people. And while they have done a great job in motivating a lot of youth to join the paras. But the selection rate of paras is perhaps now also 10 or 20%. That's it. Only if 100 people go, only 10 of them would be finally selected, or maybe 10 or 15 of them would reach the last day. A lot of people they give it. So now be it a 40-kilometer speed march, be it a 20-kilometer speed march, be it your firing. Firstly, in probation, let me promise you that whatever you do, an officer will do with you. And there'll be a probation team who will do the same thing with you. They will teach you everything as if from scratch. Okay. Like blindfolded weapon handling, So my advice for probation would be that do not enter a probation with any glamorous ideas in your mind. Enter it to become a man. Enter it with the excitement to learn new things. By the time you finish your probation, you would have learned firing, you would have learned demolitions, you would have learned navigation, how to navigate without GPSs, which I think the modern generation needs to. Everybody is so dependent on a GPS. Even in a Gaudi, people put a GPS in a car. Okay, bhai, Google laga lo. So Google Baba will not be there to help you. You will learn many operations. How to put an intravenous injection, how to inject each other. You will learn how to save your comrade's life after he gets shot in the first hour, which is called the golden hour. I mean, how many people can know it? And then people talk about training. You will be one of the most well-trained people on the earth when you finish your probation, if you finish. So the trick is that there is no trick at all. Just go with an open mind, go with the excitement to learn. Don't break down. You will undergo physical duress. Nobody said it will be easy. If it would be easy, everybody would do it. Don't go with the aim of wearing a maroon beret and all that. Just go with the aim of learning and clearing your probation. Everything else will fall into place. Just take it one day at a time. Keep striking out one day. 90 minus so-and-so days, 90 minus so-and-so days. And suddenly you'll reach the last day. That's my advice for probation.
Yeah.
It's a great thing to do.
So you were a paratrooper, sir. So how was your first experience, when you jumped out of an aircraft? And, how was that feeling? Okay, so Akash, what I'll do is that I will also share a clipping of one of my jumps with you, and if you can mash it into this, it'll be great. You can edit it and try and fit in the clip. It's a 3-minute clip. You can shorten it as per your will. So incidentally, by God the Merciful, the entire training of para jumping is conducted by Air Force para jumping instructors. So who are very, very logical, who have a lot of human connection with us paratroopers. They are like angels to us. I would still meet my instructors with so much of warmth, and they would meet us with so. And the trick is that once you become a paratrooper, you can jump all your life. 80-year-old generals and 80-year-old soldiers come and jump. There are command jumps and motivational jumps in which you motivate the serving soldiers. Veterans also jump at various days. So I of course was very excited for the training, and incidentally, I have done the para basic course twice. Now, as it happened that para jumping training takes place in Agra, and the temperature in Agra during the summers from April onwards is 48 degrees. So in 48 degrees temperature, there is a 21-day course which I did twice. The first course I did, at the end of it, we were told that in 91 and 92, that the training stock of parachutes of the army is finished. So you are being returned to unit. We'll see you next time. So I went back to unit and came back. So how it happens is that, okay, let me correlate the whole thing to what you see in movies. Okay, a lot of you would have seen Spectre, a James Bond movie called Spectre. Okay, all the James Bond movies and Mission Impossible. So you would see that whomsoever Mr. James Bond is, okay, in my case, I'm very fond of Daniel Craig and Tom Cruise from Mission Impossible. Whenever they fall, if you observe the fall, they observe either to the right or the left and break the fall. So there are only 6 roles which are taught the world over. There are 6 roles to break the fall. Okay, so it is like forward left, forward right, side left, side right, and back left, back right. So how are the roles designed? They are designed to dissipate the terminal energy, which when you hit the ground at 18 feet per second on a normal parachute, okay, which is hell of a speed to fall. Now, if you fall straight, your ankles and knees will go bust and your back, because you are jumping with a lot of load also. Your rucksack is there on your legs, your weapon is there, and so it's very important. So how the training is designed is, again, there is no glamour involved. The glamour comes only when you land. Okay, then you feel as if you're on. I'm going to describe the feeling. So how the training goes is that for the first 12 or 14 days, you are taught these roles, and then you are taught flight emergencies on a swing harness trainer, and then you undergo a fan jump from 40 feet. It's a controlled descent, and it simulates an exit from an aircraft door. And of course, before the fan jump, you are taken for an air experience, and then they tell you, okay, take out your left hand of the aircraft, take out your right leg, take out your left leg, and do whatever
short of doing a handstand, you do everything on the egg. They ask your name on the door. A lot of people who get nervous, they lose their mind on the aircraft door because it's flying. It's flying at close to 260, 300 kilometers per hour and at a certain height, and the world is passing by. So, and after that, then you are taken for your first jump. So, as luck would have it, that the day my first jump was at 4:30 in the morning, I realized that my scooter has no petrol. So, incidentally, back in '92, we used to, 3 or 4 of us used to go on the same scooter early in the morning just to take, or maybe that scooter used to do 2-3 rounds. But to skip the round and to skip the fuel consumption, we used 3 or 4 of us used to go together, and then 3 or 4 of us we decided to. So we all reached the, but the way you're taken for your first jump is the way, the hats off to the para jumping instructors at the PTS, they instill so much of motivation and enthusiasm into you that you feel as if you're going into war itself. And you're looking forward to your first jump. And trust me that since my first jump, I have never forgotten the fuel of those aviation tar fumes which comes from behind the aircraft. I just love that smell of air tar, burning air tar and the fumes which come. And the moment when you smell those fumes, the atmosphere is like this, that you are full of josh. And then the door opens, the ramp opens. If the AC is not on, when the ramp opens, actually you take a sigh of relief because your sweat makes you cool. And then 10 minutes before the exit is action stations. When you do a sound off for equipment check, you do an action stations. And then there is yellow on, it is prepare to jump, and then green on, go. So this is the action, and it's the greatest feeling on the earth. I want to jump very soon, again with my battalion or on some occasion when there is a veteran jump. Yeah. I look forward to it. And okay, just to add on to it, I'm sorry if I'm taking a little more time. I would like to very, very clearly bring out the difference between a skydive and a tactical parajump. A skydive is in the daytime, everything is good. You are jumping with a fancy sports canopy with a lot of people around you, maybe your instructor around you. A tactical parajump is usually in the dark, and there is no poodle faking about it. It's not a sport. It's dark. You don't know where the aircraft is headed to. There are no lights on. There is the whole airborne stream with you, and you can't see the ground. You are overloaded. You are anxious. And when you hit the ground, then your job starts. Because after hitting the ground, first you have to actually orient yourself. You are totally disoriented in the dark when you hit the ground. You have to take your weapon out. You have to check the well-being of your fellow brothers who have jumped with you, fellow soldiers. And then you have to get on with your task. So it's a very, very difficult and a very, very thrilling thing to undergo, experience to undergo. But let me tell you that once you hit the ground and when you look back at you feel as if you own the world, the world is at your feet. And in the words of Field Marshal Montgomery, who was a very famous British military commander of the Second World War, he said that what manner of men are those who jump by parachutes? They are men apart, every man an emperor. That is what he meant by it.
Since we spoke about the parachute regiment, sir, so if you can tell us, what makes parachute regiment so special compared to any other regiment?
Oh, well, that's a very nice question. We in the parachute regiment feel that we are not special or different. You guys are different. We are. It's not about being special or it's not about being elite. It's not. The story is not about that at all. I think in the parachute regiment, you are taught to be humble, to be down to earth, and to have a lot of humility in yourself. And I think being a paratrooper teaches you the value of life, teaches you how to overcome your fears. Every jump. If anybody who says he's not afraid when standing on the door of the aircraft or he's not nervous about it, I don't believe it. You can be gung-ho at that time. I have also been very gung-ho, to the extent that, to tell you a very funny incident, that sometimes, between course mates and friends and, battalion officers and all, what we do is that, when you are jumping with a static line, your parachute opens with a hook, which is hooked onto a static line, to a cable in the aircraft. So the trick is to get a hook and a piece of a static line, and just before your friend is jumping ahead of you, hand him over the snap hook. So imagine the guy who's jumping out and he finds the snap hook, but then you realize that, it's all opening. The parachute opens, and then when you land, you are either fighting with each other or you are running after each other. So it's a lot of bonhomie, it's a lot of mischief. So paratroopers are known to be very, very witty people, even in the worst of the circumstances are thrown into. They're supposed to be very, very lively and cheerful people. They have the quiet confidence of being very, very physically fit and being very, very well trained. So I feel that you are not special and you are not elite. You are as special and as elite as hard as you train, you have to take life as it comes. I don't frankly believe in the idea of being special or being elite. You're just doing a job. I would feel that everybody in the army is doing their job so well. That's why perhaps such large armies, they fight so well based on a plan. Paratroopers are, of course, just a little more well-trained shock troops or elite troops who can be used in so many roles. You can be used as guerrillas, you can be used as whatever. You can be used as regular troops also. That is my take on it.
So my next question would be, as a young officer, when you went for your first combat experience, so how was that? And any learning that you had or anything that you want to share with the audience, the first combat experience you had in the unit?
Yes, Akash, thank you for that question. I had my first firefight at maybe 21 years of age in Manipur. And let me tell you that it was a very thrilling thing to undergo. You feel as if, you're a mix of Clint Eastwood and, James Bond and everything. As a young guy, with a weapon in your hand, and you are like, but, after all, it's like a hunt happening. Anti-terrorist ops are like a hunt happening. He's hunting you, you are hunting him. It's about who hunts whom first. So in this case, I was lucky that we could hunt the other people first. They didn't see us, we saw them first. So it was it was in a dense jungle in Manipur, and we were in a stop across the river. We had put an ambush, and we knew that there is a raid which was taking place. And we knew, somehow my commanding officer had anticipated that some people are going to try and run on this route. So he told me that, why don't we go and sit there and put an ambush? So we saw these two people coming. And frankly, I froze, actually. I could not believe my eyes. Oh God, what to do? And he was around. They were a little away. They were across the river. So, I had these, but the rest of the section, I was a rookie. I was a newcomer, but everybody else was not a newcomer in the section, in those 10, 12 people who were there with me. So they opened up with everything they had, and it was a clear-cut victory for us. We had no casualties, and we could neutralize the other party. And then, of course, we extracted the mortal remains of the so-called militant, or whatever you may call, and we took him to the village, and we handed over the mortal remains to their loved ones and all. With all respect, I mean. And what happens is the first encounter when you go as a youngster, it's very different. You are trying to figure out where did the sound come from, what happened. You are all the time trying to figure out, and in that fog of war, everything your training comes into play. Suddenly you start firing in the right direction on the target, and that's how it happens. Frankly, if you ask me, Akash, I am not a proponent of a lot of glamour and a lot of this. Yeah, glamour comes when you wear your maroon beret. It does come sometimes. Of course, you should wear your sunglasses with your maroon beret. Why not? I mean, but all the time it's all about training. It's about, and of course, I feel that leaders should remain flamboyant also. You should be flamboyant. You should keep the child in your life. Soldiers look up to you. So many of them. You should walk your talk.
So you spoke about your first firefight. So is there been any situation where you thought, this is the end, or you cannot go beyond it? Any situation where you thought this is the end of it, I can't come out of it, or any situation which I've faced in life?
It happened actually in my second firefight. Because the first firefight, we had multiple patrols. We had 20, 30 patrols. Around. My whole battalion, my comrades were around. So there was no sense of loneliness and that battle fog which comes in. In my second firefight, we walked all night, and the weather packed up. It was a huge hailstorm, and we were walking in. In Manipur, the jungles are such that the sunlight also doesn't reach, and we were walking through these very dense jungles, and we had to reach a village. The village was, we had to climb a ridge, and the village was right across the ridge. And I entered the village, my ambush position, and there was one shot which came. And what I was exactly doing was that I was putting my ambush, and my radio operator was there. So I made him sit, you sit here. And then I went to check the others. I was just walking from man to man in the trees and all. Because when you sit, you are always under cover. You can't never sit in the open. And suddenly one shot came, and by the time I reached, I heard the sound. It's very good, and he was no more. And there was a pool of blood all over, and I thought that we are surrounded. Frankly, I had no battle experience like that. But that was the last time I lost anyone in my life. In my 25 years after that, I have never lost anyone. But yes, definitely when you are under very heavy fire, in fact, not once, but many times in my life, I have been under very heavy fire. to be very candid about it, my soldiers have given a report to my base that Saab nahi bachega, Saab mar gaya, Major Saab mar gaya. It was such heavy fire, but we in the end we came out of it. And the lesson learned are that nothing matters but your training. Your soldiers are the most important people in your life at that time, and of course after that they become your bestest friends. And also the lesson learned is that never fake it in life. There's nothing which is fake. Be yourself, and you realize the beauty of life, how precious life is, how beautiful your life is. Never get depressed on any account. God has given you this this blessing of life. Live every day, be alive, live every day to your fullest. That's what life is all about. That's what I learned from from these episodes of my life. And I really want to be always a very kind-hearted and a very good, empathetic person. That's my core values of life.
Yeah. So you spoke of a few values, which you gained from this experience of, camaraderie and not giving up. So, in parachute regiment, it's all about camaraderie. So have you experienced any other thing where you felt, this basically puts trust on, you trust the person next to you. He will do anything to make sure that you are living. Anything like that which had happened?
Yeah, all the time. I have been through situations where I will stop short of, it's like blowing your own trumpet. But I have gone all alone in an avalanche warning on a massive snowfield, just alone at night on a snow scooter, just to rescue my brother, my comrade in arms, who was ill, and he's still alive. And in avalanche warning, if something happens to you or the soldier, you will be caught. You're not supposed to move out in an avalanche warning. And but again, there are circumstances which have to dictate your actions. Sometimes you cannot follow all the orders to the O to the T. So I broke that rule to rescue my brother. And similarly, there are times when, in fact, I'll send you that photo also. I will share that picture with you, Akash. So we were, when I was commanding my battalion, an Assam Rifle battalion, I came under very heavy fire on the middle of the road. And I was so touched. I have a picture of that moment. Somebody clicked a picture, one of my soldiers, that my soldiers just surrounded me from all sides. Nobody ran away. Nobody took cover. And I was like shouted at them. I pushed them all away from me. I said, get lost, come on, make some distance. कहते नहीं साहब आपकी गोली लग जाएगा कैसे होगा आप सीओ साहब है आप हमारा पिताजी का समान है आप कैसे. And I realized that the selflessness of the act, that in that heat of the battle, everyone is a father and a brother in their house. Everybody has responsibilities. But these simple soldiers, these simple brothers who become more than your brother, I'm in touch with each one of them actually. They can do anything to protect you, but you also have to reciprocate. You should be equally concerned about your soldiers all the time. As an officer and as a leader, your prime responsibility are your soldiers. That's what the government is paying you so much for. That's my take on it. And yes, another incident I can narrate of Jammu and Kashmir, where actually I went up ahead. We were having a firefight and I ran ahead. So Havaldar Kulbir Singh, who of course is now in the Delhi police, he ran behind me and he dragged me with my feet and back. And he told me in Haryana language, "Aage nahi badhiya kar, hamesha goli lag jayegi." I was so angry with him and it was so funny and everybody started laughing. And imagine that, everybody's firing, there's a firefight on and there is, you're joking with each other and laughing with each other. So these are a few incidents which I can just narrate to everyone. Yeah. Again, the lesson learned is brotherhood and camaraderie. And remember the friends which you make under fire and these adverse circumstances, they are not friends for today, they are friends for life, or maybe in the afterlife also.
Sir, you were also the commanding officer, you were also in the Assam Rifles. So, how do you groom the young officers who come to your battalion or your section? How do you groom them? What do they go through? As a commanding officer, what do you do?
That's a very difficult question you've asked me, Akash. You should ask them. Yeah, one of them. How did I treat them? So it's so okay. I won't lie to you. At times, as a commanding officer, you have to be very tough and very harsh with your officers, because at the end of the day, what matters is that everybody should remain alive. Their life and their limb is my responsibility as a CO. And Indian Army the Indian Armed Forces give absolute power to commanding officers, but you have absolute responsibility also to your men and to your command. So I would say that at times I was very harsh with my officers and I kept him on a very tight rope. But that was only when you are going for operations and training. Otherwise, it's a very chilled out affair because I'm basically a very I'm not a very official sort of a person, and I don't believe in being too having too much of bureaucracy around me all the time. But definitely, I was a mix of good and bad with them. Most of the times I was very good, but sometimes I had to act tough with them, and which I did. I had to.
Yeah.
But we used to give them handbooks on, on entering. We had a battalion handbook on how would they operate, because in Assam Rifle, people from all arms come. So there are some officers who might not have the experience. So the onus is on the commanding officer to groom them and train them in a manner that one, he does what he's supposed to do, get victory in every battle, and two, that he remains alive, and he remains out of harm's way, and he leads his men well, he looks after his men well. They should get good food, they should have clean toilets, they should have good rooms, clean rooms to stay. Once in a while, they should have their own, parties and all. Why not? Of course, everybody needs a break. So and every officer is a soldier also. He's a soldier first. So you have to keep the soldierly qualities intact all the time. That's what my take is on the thing. But yeah, definitely, I was at times very tough.
Yeah. Sir, you've gone into multiple combats, and what was your favorite weapon which you used to operate in?
My favorite weapon was when I got commissioned, we had 7.62 mm FN Belgian SLRs, which were made in Ishapur Weapons Factory. Beautiful weapon. I would prefer carrying a 7.62 millimeter SLR any day, at that time, because we had carbines and we had pistols, and pistol has got very short range. And, SLR was deadly up to 400 meters, and it was very accurate, though a trifle heavy, 4.58 kgs was the weight, but that didn't matter at that age. Of course, after that, over the years, we got an M58 VZ, which was basically a Czechoslovak paratroopers version of an AK-47. And from 2000 onwards, of course, my favorite weapon was, of course, the good old automat Kalashnikova made in Russia. And that was my favorite. It is light, it is rugged, easy to use, it requires less maintenance, and it's ready to fire all the time. It's safe, and it's in trained hands, it can be very accurate. So I spent bulk of my time with an M58 VZ or an AK-47. And of course, an AK-47 remains till today my favorite weapon of choice. Given a choice now also, if I have to carry a weapon. Of course, now, very modern weapons like Galil and Chavaz and, whatnot, M4s, carbines and all have come for the army. Now that 6-SAW and all the new weapons, which of course, which are a necessity with modern warfare. You have to evolve with times. But certainly in our times also, we never had a dearth of weapons and all. We got the best of what was available, and we made the best use of it. And that's how it is.
So my final question to you, a lot of aspirants will be watching us. So, what would be your message to all the defense aspirants who want to join the armed forces, Indian Army, Air Force, Navy, or, the Parachute Regiment, all the special forces? What will be your message to all of them who will be watching us?
Like I have explained a lot of things to you people today. My message to all the young boys and girls who want to join the armed forces is that it is the bestest profession on the earth to be a part of the armed forces of your nation. But remember, as Field Marshal, late Field Marshal Manekshaw, he has said in his speech that don't join the Indian Army, don't join the army to lose. If you lose, don't come back. Your job is to be victorious in battle for the motherland. And, don't join the army to seek a job. Join the army to take a life. And remember always that once you join the armed forces, you have to live by the adage of Namak, Naam, or Nishan. Namak is the food which you eat. Your regiment is your Namak. Your Naam is the regiment ka Naam. And your Nishan is your regiment ka Jhanda, ensign, your colors of the regiment. And the moment you start living by them, your life will change for the better always. God bless you. Jai Hind, Bharat Mata Ki Jai.
Jai Hind, sir.